Can you imagine? In a false eyelash factory in Shandong, China, rows of exquisite falsies have been identified as a surprising source of funding for North Korea's frequent missile launches, playing a crucial role in sustaining the North Korean economy. These semi-finished false eyelashes produced in North Korea not only offer superior quality compared to those made in China, but also come at a lower price. The Shandong manufacturers are merely responsible for packaging these products and labeling them as made in China before distributing them to markets in Japan, South Korea, and even Europe and the United States. For a long time, North Korea has been a major exporter of hair products, including wigs and false eyelashes. However, the country's exports significantly declined due to the stringent lockdowns imposed during the COVID-19 pandemic. In 2023, North Korea's exports of false eyelashes to China saw significant resurgence, with customs data from China indicating that North Korea's exports to China doubled following the reopening of borders last year. In 2023, wigs and false eyelashes accounted for nearly 60% of North Korea's declared exports to China, totaling 1,680 tons of false eyelashes, mustaches, and wigs valued at $167 million. The processing and packaging of North Korean false eyelashes openly take place in neighboring China. Pingju City in Shandong Province, known as the eyelash capital of the world, is a small town with a population of approximately 1.2 million, yet it accounts for 70% of the global production of false eyelashes. About 80% of the eyelash factories in this area source or process false eyelash materials and semi-finished products from North Korea. Since 2002, China has emerged as North Korea's largest export destination, particularly since 2009 when China's share in North Korea's foreign trade increased sharply, reaching 90% by 2016. China's role as North Korea's biggest trade partner has provided Kim Jong-un's regime with a means to evade international sanctions, while also serving as an essential source of foreign currency for the country. The U.S. State Department and international experts estimate that North Korea diverts up to 90% of its citizens' foreign income to the government, with products like false eyelashes representing the hard work of North Korean laborers, whose earnings largely end up in the government's coffers, leaving many North Koreans living in poverty with a generally malnourished appearance. Since 2006, the United Nations Security Council has attempted to curb Pyongyang's nuclear weapons program through nearly a dozen sanctions resolutions that limit their trade capabilities in coal, textiles, and oil, and impose strict restrictions on North Koreans working abroad. However, it's apparent that there are loopholes being exploited. Shin Tong-chan, a sanctions lawyer in Seoul, South Korea, has indicated that the North Korean regime utilizes the millions of dollars earned monthly from the trade in hair products. Hong Min, a researcher at the Korea Institute for National Unification, revealed that luxury goods and high-end products can still enter North Korea via China, Russia, or other maritime routes, highlighting the existence of sanctions loopholes. For instance, Kim Jong-un enjoys the luxury of high-end Maybach vehicles, and his 10-year-old daughter is already adorned in luxury brands. It is feared that a significant portion of these funds is allocated to North Korea's military endeavors, including nuclear tests and missile launches, which require substantial financial backing. A spokesperson for China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs described Beijing and Pyongyang as friendly nations, implying that economic support for North Korea from China is not a concern. Over the years, the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, has not only pursued authoritarianism within its own borders, but has also supported international malign forces, both overtly and covertly, including aiding North Korea in circumventing sanctions. The same tactics have been applied to Russia. Following Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022, Western countries imposed severe sanctions on Russia, including bans on importing oil and exporting high-tech products. Many Western companies completely severed ties with Russia, leading to a significant decline in trade between Russia and the United States, the United Kingdom, and European Union countries during 2022. However, overall trade between China and Russia reached a record high of $190 billion in 2022, a 30% increase from the previous year, with Russia's imports from China growing by 13% to $76 billion and its exports to China increasing by 43% to $114 billion. As Russia's trade with Western countries plummeted in 2022, China became Moscow's most important trade partner. Nearly half of Russia's annual revenue comes from oil and natural gas, and the sanctions have led to a sharp decline in sales to European Union countries over the past year. A considerable portion of this shortfall has been compensated through increased sales to Asia. In 2022, Russia's exports of liquefied petroleum gas to China doubled compared to the previous year. It also increased its natural gas deliveries through the Siberian Power Siberia pipeline by 50% and crude oil by 10%. The G7 group of developed nations, along with the European Union and Australia, attempted to impose a global price cap on Russian seaborne oil, but China refused to comply, purchasing Russian crude oil at market prices. Beijing and Moscow have long-term plans to further develop partnership on energy. The two countries have agreed to construct a new natural gas pipeline. The existing pipeline, which began operations in 2019, has a 30-year contract worth over $400 billion. Not only has the Chinese government provided significant economic support to Russia, but has also covertly supported Russia militarily, ignoring international warnings. The United States has stated that Chinese companies have provided non-lethal support to Russia, and new information suggests that Beijing may soon offer lethal support to Russia. Maria Shagina, an expert on economic sanctions at the International Institute of Strategic Studies, mentioned that China has not openly supplied weapons to Russia, but may be secretly selling high-tech products for military use. Evidence suggests that China is the largest exporter of semiconductors to Russia, often through shell companies in Hong Kong and the UAE. Some Chinese companies are also supplying civilian drones, exploiting the gray area between military and civilian uses. The United States-based Center for Advanced Defense Studies indicated that Chinese companies might supply electronic components for anti-aircraft missile radars to Russia. The United States has sanctioned a Chinese company, accusing it of providing satellite imagery and support to Russian mercenaries operating in Ukraine. Following the outbreak of war between Israel and Hamas, Beijing has consistently refused to specifically condemn Hamas for initiating hostilities and targeting civilians. Furthermore, evidence has emerged of China's covert support for militant groups. Hamas militants engaged in fierce combat with the Israel Defense Forces, or IDF, in Gaza have been found to extensively utilize Chinese-manufactured weapons, including assault rifles and grenade launchers. The IDF has seized a large cache of such weapons from Hamas. The inclusion of advanced weapons, communication technologies, and explosives, not previously documented in Hamas's arsenal but now captured in considerable numbers, has significantly increased the group's combat effectiveness. The substantial volume of these weapons suggests involvement by another state, likely Iran, which is believed to have purchased these items from China before delivering them to Hamas. In actions against Israel, steel pipes used by Hamas to manufacture rudimentary weapons, clearly marked Shandong Laiyang Steel Pipe Factory in Chinese, were discovered to be of Chinese origin. A machine gun frequently used by Hamas militants is identified as the Type 80, a weapon developed and produced by China's North Industries Corporation. It is lightweight, easy to use, and mass-produced, make it particularly suitable for harsh conditions such as those in the Middle Eastern deserts. Additionally, Gaza's extensive network of tunnels has become a crucial tactical tool for Hamas in terrorist attacks and military confrontations, a feat impossible without foreign expertise in tunnel warfare. Tunnel warfare was historically pioneered by the CCP. Rumors suggest the CCP's engineering corps played a significant role in advising on Hamas's tunnel warfare. The The evidence of support from the CCP to Hamas, together with the CCP's consistent reluctance to denounce Hamas's actions in diplomatic settings, reflects its similar approach towards Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Although Beijing indeed provided weapons and military training to the Palestine Liberation Organization in the past, China's support for Palestine, especially military aid, has significantly diminished since establishing diplomatic relations with Israel in 1992. China is currently Israel's third largest trading partner, and Israel is a key source of high-tech acquisitions for China. Under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, China has actively participated in Israeli infrastructure projects, with Chinese investment or Chinese companies involved in constructing ports and light rail systems. However, following the outbreak of the Israel-Hamas conflict, China's attitude towards Israel has undergone a significant shift, quickly evolving from past expressions of goodwill and admiration to a stance that could be perceived as anti-Semitic. In situations of conflict, the CCP often maintains a neutral stance publicly, yet it has been providing significant economic, material, and military support to one side of the conflict, positioning itself as a major influence in international relations with controversial affiliations. Since the Taliban government came to power in Afghanistan in 2021, it has not been recognized by other foreign governments. However, Beijing has continuously sought to develop relations with the Taliban. In 2023, the Taliban government was invited to participate in Beijing's Belt and Road Forum. On January 30th of this year, Xi Jinping formally accepted the credentials of the Taliban ambassador in the Great Hall of the People in Beijing, signaling the CCP's official recognition of the Taliban government as the legitimate government of Afghanistan. The CCP's Belt and Road Initiative has garnered support from certain developing countries in the Third World. Its big spender diplomacy is a crucial means for the CCP to acquire a position in the international order. It is gradually becoming apparent that Russia, North Korea, Iran, the Taliban, Hamas, the allies the CCP chooses to align with are the world's authoritarian regimes and terrorist organizations, positioning the CCP as a leading figure of an evil axis. The CCP's confrontation with the democratic free world has set the stage for a Cold War standoff with Western democracies. Rewinding to March 2023, amidst the devastating Russian-Ukrainian conflict, when the majority of the global community condemned Russia, Xi Jinping visited Russia. This act not only lacked any intention of mediation, but also concluded with a startling remark before his farewell handshake with Putin. This is part of great changes unseen in a century. Let's push it forward together. This statement made at their final goodbye reflects that Xi considers most significant, candidly revealing his true intention behind the visit to Russia. This remark is profoundly intriguing. Great changes unseen in a century is a phrase Xi has frequently used during his tenure, previously interpreted as referring to China's domestic situation. However, set against the backdrop of the ongoing Russo-Ukrainian war and shared sentiments between Xi and Putin, the underlying truth behind this statement is indeed chilling. The so-called Great Change of the Century represents Xi's attempt to alter the international political order, possibly in an attempt to fulfill Mao Zedong's mission of liberating humanity and achieving what the CCP has not accomplished in a century. That is, transforming the democratic free world into a global authoritarian regime. Over the past century, the world order established a Western civilization led by the United States, which Hitler failed to break, the Soviet Union failed to break, and Mao Zedong ultimately abandoned, is now what Xi and Putin have agreed to challenge in an attempt to achieve a breakthrough in this century's pattern. This is what Xi meant by "let's push it forward together." How to push forward? Supporting Russia's conquest of Ukraine and Russia's support for China's control over Taiwan are very likely scenarios. The joint statement from this visit included more explicitly than previous statements. The Russian side firmly supports the Chinese side's measures to safeguard its sovereignty and territorial integrity. What does measures mean? Actions, especially military actions, are such measures. Here, the terminology used by both sides is unabashedly direct, indicating that in the event of a Taiwan Strait crisis, Russia could help mitigate the vulnerability China faces from U.S. actions. Should maritime traffic be disrupted, Russia would also be a potential provider of energy and food supplies to China. In return, the CCP is actively assisting Russia in facing its current predicaments. Hence, despite ongoing Western sanctions, the Russian economy has not shown the downturn many anticipated, thanks to substantial support from the CCP. Just as North Korea has remained resilient under years of sanctions, with Kim Jong-un's regime standing firm, the CCP's clandestine support has been indispensable. In fact, the initiative to push forward the change of the century was already hinted at in the 3 global initiatives proposed by Xi. Now it is clear that the slogan of great changes unseen in a century is not defensive, but astonishingly offensive. In just a few words, Xi's true ambition is fully exposed. First, to push forward. Second, to do so in conjunction with Russia. How does he plan to push forward? Apart from war, what other means could there be? A military confrontation in which China, partnering with Russia against the Western world, aims to establish a new global authoritarian framework. The realization that Xi harbors such a grand strategy is terrifying. If this mentality and ambition are fundamentally anti-human and is acted upon, the outcome could very likely be World War III. Following Xi Jinping's visit to Russia, a series of escalating conflicts has been observed globally. Hamas launched a brazen terror attack on Israel, adding Gaza to the list of active conflict zones. At the end of January, armed groups affiliated with Iran, including the Islamic Resistance in Iraq, initiated drone strikes. The Houthi rebels in Yemen ignited conflicts, turning the Red Sea into a new battleground. In response, the U.S. military launched Tomahawk missiles from the Red Sea, targeting 85 locations in Syria and Iraq associated with the Iranian Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps and related political and military groups. Meanwhile, North Korea has increased its military activities, launching several submarine-launched cruise missiles into the Yellow Sea 3 times in a single week at the end of January. These missiles, with a range of 2,000 kilometers, are capable of reaching the entirety of South Korea and U.S. military bases in Japan. Domestically, North Korea is ramping up its rhetoric, labeling South Korea as an enemy belligerent nation, calling for constitutional amendments to change its policy towards South Korea, and even dismantling monuments symbolic of inter-Korean unification. These aggressive signs suggest a potential for conflict on the Korean peninsula, raising concerns about a resurgence of hostilities. With the Russian-Ukrainian conflict ongoing, intense fighting between Israel and Hamas, and sporadic violence in the Middle East, and now the addition of conflict in Northeast Asia, could lead Beijing to seize the opportunity to launch an attack on Taiwan, while U.S. military resources are stretched thin. This would fulfill Xi Jinping's ambition of driving great changes unseen in a century. Should the situation escalate to this point, it could very well constitute the onset of World War III. World peace should not be jeopardized by the ambitions of leaders like Xi Jinping and Vladimir Putin. A coalition led by the CCP, developed and implemented systematically, signifies a current and continuous risk. The global ambitions of the CCP, revealed through something as seemingly innocuous as North Korean false eyelashes, must not be overlooked or compromised for the sake of gaining entry into China's vast market. A united stand by the civilized world is essential to prevent a catastrophe for all humanity.